Microsoft Project 2010 is basically a task organizing program. So any project you want to take on, like building a house or writing a book, typically requires many steps or what are referred to as tasks in the project program. A very basic and simple sample would be to say I'm writing a book. For example, my first task would be to research the book, then next is to write the book, and then finally print the book. Now these tasks here are linked up in a relationship, meaning, for example, I cannot start task 2 until its predecessor task 1 has been completed. This will make sense in the project here because if I haven't researched anything in task 1, then I have nothing to write about in task 2. Now the tasks are usually tracked on a timeline, which is each task is allotted so much time, like in hours, days, weeks, or months to be completed. And if one task takes longer than its set time, then as a result it may push our project out here and extend it beyond its due date and of course be late. Now each task is going to require some resources, and there are 3 types of resources. You have your workers, which is who's going to work on task 1 and task 2. For example, task 2, writing the book, can have writers. The next resource would be materials. So once they're working on writing the book, do they need a ream of paper to write the book on, or are they going to use a word processing program like Word 2010? And then finally you have the cost between the two. Are you going to pay your workers hourly or salary, and then of course the cost of the materials? Now you have one additional resource, which is your budget, but we'll go over that in a later training video. We're going to break it down as you see here step by step in the Project 2010 Level 1 training videos. First thing we need to do is to open up the Project 2010 program, and to do that, if you want to learn how to open up programs in Windows, then I recommend that you watch my Windows training videos. But for this video here and throughout the remainder of the videos, I want to go ahead and do it through the shortcut on my desktop. And if you want to put that shortcut of the program on the desktop, where all you have to do is go ahead and double click on it to open up the program, then come down here and click on the Start button, come up and click on All Programs, and then scroll to and find the Microsoft Office folder, click on it to expand it, and then there's the project program. Give it a right click, and then in the shortcut menu that opens up, come up here and hover over Send To, and then go over to the next shortcut menu and click on Create Shortcut, where it's going to be on the desktop. Go ahead and click on it. Let me click off of it, and it'll put it right here. So all you have to do is go ahead and double click on the shortcut, opens up the program, there you go. Okay, for those of you who've used earlier versions of Project like 2007, 2003, well, the biggest difference you're going to find every time you open up Project is that you're not dealing with toolbars or menus anymore. Well, maybe one toolbar, known as the Quick Access Toolbar. Let me go ahead and go over the view, what you're seeing here every time you open up Project. By coming up here in the upper left-hand corner, I'll work from left to right and then from top to bottom. So in the left-hand corner, we've got the green icon or logo, P for Project. To the right of that, you have what's known as the Quick Access Toolbar. It's called that because you can quickly access the commands or tools on the toolbar in a single click, like the Save command. Hover over that, gives you the pop-up, says Save. Go ahead and click on it. It'll save your project. And then over to the right of that, we've got the title bar. And every time you open up Project, it'll have a generic title name like Project 1, Project 2, Project 3. You can go ahead and rename it when you save it and call it like My Spiffy Project or My Construction Project, whatever name you want to give it. And then to the right of that little dash there, you've got the name of the program. In case if you missed it over here, the green P, oh, I'm in the project program, you can always look up here and go, oh, I'm in the Microsoft project program. Then to the right of that, you have the Windows operating buttons here to work the window here to minimize it down, restore it down, or close out of it. You can learn more about that in my Windows training videos. And then below that, you have what's known as the ribbon. Now, the ribbon has all these commands, but it's trying to organize it into something that's coherent or makes sense. So, for example, you've got the Task tab dealing all with tasks, the Resource tab with all the resources that you'll use in your project, the Project tab, which has all the information that you want to get an overview about the project, like the project information if you want to create or look at custom fields, the View tab when it comes to viewing different parts of the project, then its Contextual Related tab, specifically tied to what you have selected down below. And then you have the Backstage View tabs called the File tab. So in other Microsoft Office programs, earlier versions, you had the File menu. Well, this is the File tab. Now, as you notice that when I click on each one of these tabs, it just changes the ribbon here. When I click on the File tab, it changes the whole screen, and it pulls me backstage. The reason why it's called that basically is because you're working behind the scenes, like maybe to save the project, which you can do from the Quick Access Toolbar, and I'll show you how you can customize that to add more commands if you'd like. get more information about the project, print the project, get more options to customize the project, the appearance of it, the display, when it comes to saving your project, things like that. Click Cancel. So that's the Backstage view. Now when you click on the File tab and you're back there and you're like, I don't want to be back here, I want to go back to the front stage, you can come up here and either click on one of these tabs to get back to the front and then go ahead and work in your project, or let me click on File again. You can just click on the File tab again and it will take you to the last tab that you were at in the front stage view. So if I click on File again, it takes me to the task because that's where I last left off. If I go to the Project tab, click on File, then click on File again, it takes me back to the Project tab. Okay, go back to the Task tab here. And then below that, new to Project 2010 is the timeline, and it'll make more sense once we start working through the videos about project here. But basically, it gives you the start and finish date of the project that you're working on that you can go ahead and click and drag a slider that will put you at that timeline that you can go ahead and view the information down below, which is a great segue because what you're viewing down below, every time you open up the project program, you're going to be in the default view known as the Gantt chart view. And you can see the name of that view over here, Gantt chart. Now in this Gantt chart view, you have the left-hand side, which is known as the table, where you enter in the data, and then there's the split bar, and then the right-hand side, which is actually charting the data that you enter in over here. So to oversimplify here, if you got a task, you go ahead and you type in the task name, like let's say cleaning out the fridge. You've got a start date to start at a certain time, and it's going to take like 6 weeks. So you type in the duration. It'll go ahead and it'll chart that over here in the Gantt chart in a bar chart format. So it'll start here, if you pick the start date here, and if it's 6 weeks, it'll go out 6 weeks. And you can see the timeline up above here that you can look at, not the main timeline view, but the time scale, and you can actually see how far it's going along over in the chart view. And then over to the left-hand side, again, it's the name of the view that we're currently in the Gantt chart. If you want to change views, you can come up here and click on the View tab. I mean, that makes sense, right? I want to go to a different view, and we'll talk about the different views. Or over here, you can actually right-click on it, and you can see a list of some of the views here. You can go to more views, but these are the more popular views. Again, the default Gantt chart, okay? Let me click off of it. And then finally down below, we've got the status bar. You can right-click on it, customize it. It'll also tell you down here the status where it says it's ready, and then also any other information that's pertinent to what you're working on right now, which it says right now new tasks are going to be manually scheduled, and we'll cover that, how you can do it automatically as well. You can click on that, and you can see that the other option is to automatically schedule it. To customize the quick access toolbar, you can see up here you've got the 3 default commands, save, then undo, and then redo. And the reason why you may want to add more commands to it, think of it this way. If you've got a lot of commands that you use that are on the Task tab, Resource tab, like the Assign Resources, then you have to go back to the Task tab to use another command. Instead, just go ahead and put those commands up here on the Quick Access Toolbar, and you don't have to bounce around from tab to tab to tab. Just put the more popular ones, or the ones that you use most in the project. In other words, I wouldn't put all the commands on there, but then I'm not you. In any case, to go ahead and customize the Quick Access Toolbar and to add commands to the toolbar here, you can do it one of, well, there's many ways. You can either click on the drop-down arrow, and it gives you a list of the more popular commands, like, creating a new project, opening up one, saving it as another project, quick print. Go ahead and select one, and it adds it. So when I click on the quick print, it automatically prints what I see here. It doesn't give me a chance, though, to go ahead and choose how many pages I'd like printed, or what pages, like from 1 to 6 or 2, 4, and 5. In any case, to add more commands to the Quick Access Toolbar, click on the drop-down arrow. If you don't see it here, you can go down to More Commands, opens up this window, or close out. You can give it a right-click and go down to Customize, and it opens up the same window, okay? So you got a list of more popular commands, and you can go ahead and scroll through these and find one, and then go ahead, and when you see one, like Format Painter, go ahead and double-click on it to add it over here. And if you want to see more commands, or all the commands that are available, click on the drop-down arrow and go down to All Commands. It's sorted alphabetically, well, first with the numbers. And then you got the A's all the way down to the Z's. So if I scroll down to the C's, and I want to close my project, I can double-click on that. That closes the project without closing the project program. So if you have a project open called My Spiffy Project, you can close out of that, but still have the shell of the program open, so you can go ahead and open up other projects. And we can go ahead and scroll down a little bit more. We can go ahead and double click on copy. Now, After you add the commands over to the right-hand side, this is the order they're going to appear in from, well, this is top to bottom. They'll come over here from left to right. So it'll be save, then Format Painter, close. If you click OK, and you're like, I don't like the order of that, I'd like the Format Painter command over here, then go ahead and right-click on it and go down to Customize, and then go ahead and select Format Painter and use the up or down arrows to move it down a couple here, and then go ahead and click OK, and there you go, updates it. Now these commands are pretty tight. In other words, I don't have a whole lot of room for error with this pointer here, that if I don't get right on top of it and I kind of border the other one and I click on it, if it's like a delete command, it could be a boo-boo. So in any case, what you may want to consider is to customize the quick access toolbar and add a separator or spaces in between these commands. For one of two reasons, either to go ahead and give you more space so you don't accidentally click on one, or to actually group them, saying, okay, like for example, let me double click to add a separator, and I can move my separators around going up or down. Then add another separator, and go ahead and move these down. There we go. Maybe this group is for my formatting, copying, and then I'll have another group for maybe just all printing if I have my quick print, and then I have my print preview, printing options. So you see how you can separate those here. And you can add more separators here. Let me double click so I can have even more space between these commands. So when I click OK, let me go ahead and move this one down. So you can see the difference between two separators, how much space, and then just one. And click OK, and there you go. Separators are the lines there. So you can see you got a separator from the icon there, the logo, before you hit the save button. Then I have two separators before I hit the next command. There's my group of commands, and I've got a separator for the next group of commands. Again, you can have them in groups, or you can just say, look, I want a little bit of space between me and this other command because, boy, when they get so tight together there, I've made mistakes and clicked on one command when I meant to click on the other. So this gives me a little bit of spacing in between. Now to go ahead and to remove these commands, including the spacers, you can just go ahead and right-click on it and say remove, right-click, remove, and just keep on removing them all, or as many as you'd like. Now, another way that you can add commands to the quick access toolbar, instead of actually just right-clicking on it and going to customizing it and opening up a window, if the command's right here and you can see it and you're like, hey, I'd like the bold command to be right up there, go ahead and right-click on the command and say add it. And it adds it right to the quick access toolbar. Sweet. So you can add it there, each individual command, or if you'd like a group to be added to the quick access toolbar, then go ahead and find a blank area within the group, like the font group, right-click on it and say add it. Now by default, when you add a group to the quick access toolbar, it's going to choose one of the commands as its icon. So don't think that when you look at this that that's going to be the font color, because when you hover over it, it says font for the font group. And you can see over here, when you hover over that, it says font color, but it needs some sort of icon to indicate, hey, this is actually a command for a group that you got to click on. Otherwise, what is it going to use? Well, it uses one of the defaults here. So when you click on it, it opens up the group. Pretty sweet. Okay, you can click off. And then, of course, you can just right-click to remove them as well. Now, before I show you how you can customize the ribbon, what are the defaults? You've got the Task tab, Resource, Project, View, and Format. You can add additional tabs with your own commands to that tab or groups within that tab, or you can actually use the tabs here and remove the groups that you don't want and add your own custom groups. In any case, to customize the ribbon, all you have to do is go ahead and right-click anywhere on the ribbon. You can right-click there, right-click there, right-click there, and go down to Customize the ribbon, or close out, you can click on the File tab, go down to Options to customize the ribbon. It brings up the same window. And then over to the far right, you got the main tabs as we just went over. You got the Task, Resource, Project, View. In any case, you've got one tab that's not turned on by default or not available. You can go ahead and check it, the developer, and it will pull up. But before I go ahead and click OK, let me go over the other options you have here. Now with what you got here, if you don't want to see the View group on the Task tab, you can see right here, there's the View group on the Task tab. You can select it and click Remove. Additionally, if you don't want to see the Task tab at all, you can go ahead and uncheck it and click OK. The Task tab's gone. The Developer tab we had checked, that shows up. Of course, I can't tell you or show you that the View group on the Task tab is also gone because the Task tab has disappeared. So to go ahead and bring it back up, right-click anywhere on the ribbon, go down to Customize the ribbon, and then go ahead and check it, and then click OK. brings the task tab back up, but without the view group. Okay, so you can go ahead and customize that by removing groups, unchecking tabs if you don't want to see them. Let me go ahead and right click and go back to customize the ribbon. And then when it comes to commands within the groups here, the default groups like the clipboard group, you see how they're faded? You can't select those and remove them. Those are always there. Although you can remove the groups, you can't remove the commands in those default groups. Now if you want to go ahead and add a group, a custom group to the task tab, then select it, come down here and click on new group, adds it down at the bottom here. And I don't like the generic name new group, so I'm going to come down here with it selected and click on rename and call it my Spiffy G. I mean, that's pretty hip, the Spiffy group. And then you can go ahead and choose a symbol. That means that if you choose to add this group to the quick access toolbar, it'll be represented by the symbol that you choose here. If you don't choose a symbol, it'll use a generic, the default green orb. So let me go ahead and show you both ways. Let's go ahead and choose the symbol here, the $ for the Spiffy G, and click OK. So I've got the group here. Now I need to add commands to that group. As you recall, let me click and drag this out of the way. You've got the group here and you've got commands within the group. So I've got the group here. Let's come over here and add commands to the group by selecting one, clicking add, selecting add, and I'm just adding them here. But you get the idea. You can go ahead and choose whatever commands you want to add to it. And then while we're here, so we know how to, add groups here to a default tab if we create a new tab. And let me select the tab here because I want to rename the tab and call it tab 1 and click OK. And then we've got the first group. Again, I don't want it the generic new group. Let's go ahead and rename it. Call G1. I mean, that just sounds so cool. I'm not going to go ahead and choose a symbol here so I can show you when I add that group, when I don't choose a symbol to the quick access toolbar, how it's just going to have a green orb representing that group, and click OK. But let me select that and go ahead and, of course, add some commands here to the group here. And let's do one more group. Let's go ahead and do another group here, rename it, call it G2, and click OK, and then add a few more commands here, just willy-nilly. Okay. So we made some changes here. We've added my custom group, and then we added a new tab. So let's see what it looks like here and click OK. Cool. On the task tab, over to the far right, there's my custom group, the Spiffy G, with the commands here that I can go ahead and, wow, font size. I mean, the commands do work. That's pretty sweet. Then I've got my custom tab here with G1 and G2. Man, I am sounding so hip right now. So like I said, if you want to go ahead and add these groups to the quick access toolbar, as you recall in the previous training video on how to customize the quick access toolbar, all you have to do is go ahead and right click in a blank area within the group and say add it. And like I said, if you don't choose a symbol, when you add a new group, then it's going to be represented by this default green orb. And I can right click on this group, add it. Well, that was the first symbol, then it decided it can't match that, so it chose another symbol here. So you can click on that to open up that group. And this one's not going to work to open up this group because I'm not working in accordance with this command to be able to actually use it. So let's go back to the Task tab, come over here to the Spiffy G and right click on it and add it to the Quick Access toolbar. And there's the symbol that I chose to represent that group when I add it to the Quick Access toolbar. So I can click on that, opens it up. Sweet. Then I can go ahead and choose whatever command I want there. Let me click off in a blank area. Now, if I made a mistake and I'm like, oh fudge, what was it on here that I removed? Was it the view group? Yeah, I think it was that. And I want to bring it back now, or I made some major error and I removed commands and it's just a mess. What you can do is go ahead and right click on the ribbon, go back down to customize the ribbon. And down below with the reset, you get two options. You can reset only the selected tab, in which case anything that you removed, that's a default or main tab, will be added back into it, and anything that you added or customized, added commands to it, will be removed. So it resets it back to its default for the main tabs. So if it was across the board, let me click on the drop down arrow and reset all the customizations. Again, it says, hey, it's going to delete all ribbon and quick access toolbar customizations. Whether I removed them or added them, it sets them back to their defaults. Say yes, click OK, and we're back with the view group. I no longer have tab 1 or my custom group over here, which brings up a good point. Finally, when you go ahead and right click and you go down to customize the ribbon, if you want to use them later on, but you don't want them to appear on the ribbon here, the tabs, then go ahead and uncheck them as you see here. And of course, that was checked, but since we reset it, it unchecked it. So to bring it back up, developer, check it again, click OK, and there's the developer tab. And then if you need a little bit more room when it comes to the ribbon here, there's a couple things you can do. you can go ahead and hold down the Control key and hit F1, and it minimizes the ribbon. So you can just see the tabs. Click on it, choose your command. When you choose the command, click on it, it disappears again. Control F1 brings it back up, or you can come over here to that little caret, that little angle pointing up. Click on it, it minimizes it. Click on it, it expands it. And again, when you hover over it, as you just saw, you get the shortcut Control F1, or you can go ahead and double click on the tabs to collapse, double click to expand. So that's if you're really stretching it. You got like a 56-inch monitor and you want just a little bit more room. Okay, the project that we'll be going over is how to write and publish a book. So I've got to complete a bunch of tasks in order to complete the project of the book. Like the first task could be researching for the book, and then the second task writing the book, the third editing the book, the fourth printing, and so on. Well, chances are is that you're not going to be writing and publishing a book when it comes to your projects. So just take the concepts that you see me do here and be able to apply it to your project. So for example, if you've got a project on building a home, maybe the first task would be to draw up plans. The second task would be to pour the foundation of the home. The third task would be to build the framework on top of the foundation, and so on. In any case, go ahead and take the concepts there and apply it to your project. And the first thing I'm going to do when it comes to starting my project is to set the project start date. To do that, come up here and click on the Project tab, go to the Properties group, and click on Project Information. And there you go, Start Date. Now the start date, coincidentally, is the current date, today's date, February 8th, 2013. So project assumes when it comes to creating a project by default is going to be today's date, which of course you don't have to have it today's date. In fact, instead of using today's date, we're going to go back and use an earlier start date. So the two reasons for jumping back to an earlier year, like 2010, to do this project is, first of all, if you're in the middle of a project, if need be, I want to show you how you can backdate your start date. And then second of all, it'll make it much easier to show you the progress as we move along in a later time than it is to be in the current date today and trying to move ahead with the examples that I want to show you. In any case, to go ahead and backdate the start date, you can click on the drop-down arrow and click back, 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 or better yet, just go ahead and click inside the start date and type in the, we'll go back to August 31st, 2010. But before I do that, let me click and drag the title bar for the window here to move it out of the way so I can show you over here in the Gantt chart. You see that orange line? That represents the current date, today's date, okay? So keep that in mind when you're working and looking in the Gantt chart, and we'll cover that later on. Let me click and drag this back, which, by the way, you can see you got a drop-down arrow for the current date. You can also backdate the current date as well, but we're going to keep it simple here, and we won't be covering everything that you see in the window here right off the bat. Just keep in mind that this is going to be a process. So we've got the start date here. Go ahead and type it in, which, by the way, if your project doesn't start on a certain day but must be completed by a certain day, it doesn't matter when you start, it just has to be finished by a certain date, then you can come down here and say schedule. Instead of from the start date, you can say from the finish date. So the start date gets blocked out and it just says, okay, when's your finish date? And you can go ahead and click on the drop down arrow and say, okay, the project has to be finished by this date. Doesn't matter when you start, just has to be finished, in which case it schedules the project from that date and goes backwards. So when you go ahead and you add in a bunch of tasks to be completed with all the durations, like this task takes a week, 10 days, it starts backdating it from the finish date. Well, we're going to keep it simple and say it has to start on this date here, which is going to be, let me click in here and type in the date, 8/31/2010, hit the tab key. You can click on the drop down arrow and you can see it picked it up. It's August 2010, and then there's the day, the 31 that's shaded there. Go ahead and click off. And that's when our project's going to start. Now, before I go ahead and click OK, notice over here in the Gantt chart window, remember this is the Gantt chart view, that's the table, this is the Gantt chart, that you can see it's in 2013. If I go ahead and click OK, boom, it takes me back. You can see that dot, 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 that line there. It's kind of tiny. But in any case, that's going to be my start date. That's when the project begins. And the time scale, again, is showing us back in 2010. At this point, I recommend that you actually save your project. It's got the generic title Project 1 until you actually save it and give it a name. So I'll go ahead and click on Save. I'll go to my desktop, and on my desktop I have my exercises folder. Double click to open that up, and I'll come down here and name my project file the Software Training Manual. So yeah, we're writing and publishing a book, but it's going to be on a specific software. Okay, and then click Save. Once I save it, you can see back up here in the title bar that instead of the generic Project 1, it's actually the name that I gave it, Software Training Manual. Now, if there's information that you want to add to your project, like who the author is, the manager, some comments or keywords that when you're looking for a project that you can actually spot it if the keywords aren't found in the task. In any case, to go ahead and add additional properties to your project, come up here, click on the File tab, and then Info selected by default. Come over here, there's Project Information. Click on the drop-down arrow and click on Advanced Properties. Let me click and drag the title bar for the window here down below. You can see the General tab has when the project was created, modified, and last accessed. Then the Summary tab, where we can go ahead and enter in, well, by default, we've got the title up here in the title here. And then we've got the subject, the author, company. You can go ahead and say the manager is also Kurt Kershaw, who's managing the project. Type in some keywords. And these keywords are actually searchable. So when you go ahead and come down here and click on the Start button, you type in, like, let's see, I'm looking for a project that has gummy bears in it. Well, if you type in gummy bears in the keywords here, it'll actually, I don't know why I'm doing this, keywords, and keep using the delimiter, the comma, to separate your keywords. In any case, if the words aren't found in the title or in the actual project as a task, as long as you got them in here, it'll actually find it when you do a search, an instant search, from, again, the Windows Start button here in the instant search field, okay? And then any comments, and then, of course, a hyperlink base for any links that you add to the project. Okay, let's actually come up here and say it's going to be our spiffy software training manual. In any case, when I'm done, go ahead and click OK. Come back up here, click on the File tab to take us back to the last tab that we left in the front stage view, which was the Project tab. Now, one thing I want to go over again that I covered in an earlier training video is that you do have the Undo button, so anything you did, you can undo. And you can click on the drop-down arrow to undo. We'll keep a history of all the actions that you've done. And this one, Properties, I have one undo action here. And then if I did other things, it would keep track of it. And also I could click Undo, 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 and undo everything. Now, when you click the Save button, though, as you recall, this is a warning. When you click Save, the undo disappears. You can no longer undo any of your actions, and it goes from that point forward. So if I go ahead and type in other information, come back here, click on File, go to Project Information, to Advanced Properties, make some changes here. Let's get rid of gummy bears. We don't need that. And click OK, and then click on the File tab. Well, you got the action there to undo. Click Save. It clears the history, and you start back from scratch, okay? So keep that in mind before you click Save. Make sure you don't have to undo anything. Now, when it comes to creating a base calendar for the project, the purpose of that is to go ahead and include your company's working days, working times, and non-working times or days like weekends, holidays. In any case, to go ahead and create a base calendar for our project here, you want to come up here to the Project tab, go to the Properties group, and click on Change Working Time. There's the standard project calendar, and with that selected, you can come down here in the Preview window and select any days that are in white, like the 13th. You can see over in the legend that that's a working day. To see the times for that working day, you can see over here it's from 8 to noon with an hour lunch, and then from 1 to 5. If you come over here and select a non-working day, you can see it's shaded in gray. The 10th, which is a Sunday, it says over here it's a non-working day. Doesn't mean that you cannot assign resources to work on that day, which we'll cover, of course, later training videos. It just means, hey, we're flagging you that you don't work these days. Now that's the standard project calendar. You can click on the drop-down arrow, and you've got two other choices. You have the 24 hours, which you can see down below. We have no non-working times. The project is always running. Of course, the people aren't, because if you have somebody working 24 hours in a row, at least for me, I'd pass out. In any case, you may have crews that come in every 12 hours. You can see over here, it goes from 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. So, the first part of the day, you got one crew coming in, and then the second part of the day or during the night, you have the other crews. So the project, again, is going 24 hours nonstop. Click on the drop-down arrow. You got the night shift. And let's come over here and select a working day. And you can see that the time for the night shift is from 11 to 8 a.m. with an hour lunch from 3 to 4 a.m. Now these times, you can go ahead and change them, and I'll show you how to do it in a later training video. But for right now, let's choose the standard that we want to base our calendar upon. So let me click on the drop down arrow and choose the standard project, the daytime, working during the days from 8 to 5. And you could say, well, how about if I just go ahead and choose this one and say OK? Well, that's okay if you just have one project, but if you got many projects with different times, different holidays, non-working times, the mess that you're going to be running into is that you'll be updating the standard template for each project. So for the standard one, if you assign it to My Spiffy Software Training Manual, the project that we're working on, and you say, okay, well, the default times will be from 8 to 5, and then you create another project saying, okay, the default times will be from 7 to 4, you have to go ahead and update the standard template. And when you do that, it updates the standard template that's assigned to this project, so it's no longer from 8 to noon. You see the mess that you can run into? So instead, what I recommend that you do is you go ahead and you create a new calendar based upon this one, and you create a calendar for each new project based upon the standard one, or based upon the 24-hour night shift. You choose. Let me go ahead and choose standard. Come over here and click on Create New Calendar, and then it says, okay, go ahead and give it a name, and I'll pretty much name it the same name as the project that I'm working on. Like this one will be My Spiffy Calendar for My Spiffy Software Training Manual. And then it says, what do you want to make a copy of that you can tinker with later on, which I'll show you how to do. It's going to be the standard, 24 hours in the night shift. It's going to be the standard. Whoops, now I selected standard, it updated it here. I'll go ahead and leave it as copy of standard, and the reason why is because if I click OK and I go, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Now I've got this copy of standard. I meant to change that. Well, if you made a mistake here and you want to delete the calendar, which I'll show you in a later training video, but hey, you don't want to wait till that time to figure out if you made a mistake now how to fix that, right? So what you can do is click off, click close, come up here, click on the File tab, the info selected by default, come down here and click on Organizer because you want to organize your calendars. And over here in the current project that we have open, the Software Training Manual, there's the copy of the standard. Go ahead and select it, delete it, say yes, close out, click on the File tab again so it takes us back to the place where we last left, which was on the Project tab. Again, Properties group, click on Change Working Time, click on Create New, base it upon the standard. Let's give it our spiffy name, click OK, and there you go. So we've got 4 calendars now. We have our standard templates, then we have the one that we want to use for this project or apply to this project with all the changes or the variations off of the standard if we need to have any made. As you recall in the previous training video, we learned how to create a base calendar for our project here, and we called it the Spiffy Calendar. Well, if you forgot how to open up your change work time window so we can work on your base calendar, because in this training video we're going to learn how to create exception days or block out days for events like holidays and vacation. Let me go ahead and close out. Then come up here on the Project tab to the Properties group. There you go. Click on Change Working Time. Now when you do that, keep in mind that every time you click on that button, it'll take you to the standard default template. So don't make the mistake like I did going, oh good, let me go ahead, come down here, make changes, and then after some changes have been made, go, oh, I made the changes to the standard template and not to my other base calendar, the Spiffy Calendar here. So be sure to select it, because what you have selected up above, changes that you make down below will apply to that calendar. So again, the training video here that we want to cover is exception days, how we can block out days for events like holidays and vacation. So to do that, as you recall, my project is going to be in the year 2010. So let me go ahead and let's scroll back to, okay, let me go down to September. So in September, we have Labor Day, which is September the 6th. That's going to be an exception day, a day that we're not going to work. So go ahead and select it, the day that you don't want to work. Then come down here on the Exceptions tab and type in the name of that day that's going to be an exception. It's going to be Labor Day. Hit the tab key. By default, it enters the same date for the start and finish, meaning that that's the only day that's going to be blocked out. Or you can go ahead and click in the finish date and set that out and say Labor Day is going to last for 2 days. And then go ahead and click below that. You can see that when you click off of it, you've got the exception days in green, saying besides the typical base calendar of non-working times, you're making 2 exceptions here. And that Labor Day goes from Monday through Tuesday. Okay, you made a mistake, or I did. Let's go ahead and change that back to the 6th. Click below that, click off in a blank area. There you go, there's the exception day. Okay, so if we select it again, you can see over here it's non-working, as when you select a non-working time, it's also non-working, okay? We also have Thanksgiving. Well, definitely want to take that off. Have some yummy turkey. Now when it comes to selecting multiple days, because Thanksgiving is going to be the 25th through the 26th, you can click and drag, or you can go ahead and select the 8th and come down here and hold down the Shift key and click on the 26th, and that's block selection. So using the Shift key, in any case, I'm just going to click and drag from the 25th through the 26th. And then in the second row, below Labor Day, this is going to be Thanks. Go ahead and hit Enter on the keyboard. You don't have to hit the Tab key, but when you hit Enter, you can see when you click off of it, there's the exception days in green. Cool. And then how about Christmas vacation? And that's going to be the 23rd through the 24th because Christmas falls on a Saturday. So go ahead and click and drag and select those days, then come down here and type in, then hit Enter and click off in a blank area. There you go. So you got it visually up here and then numerically down below. As you recall in the previous training video, we learned how to create exception days or days that we're blocking out for events like holidays and vacation. Here we're going to learn how to set non-default work week or working times that are going to be different from the default working times. So for example, like let's say on the 22nd, I want to be able to start everybody's vacation off with a nice luncheon. So instead of working the full day, how about if we just work from, instead of 8 to noon, how about from 7 to 11? And then have lunch from 11 on, and they can go whenever they want. So to go ahead and set up the working time so it's not the default there, choose the day, come down here and click on Work Weeks, click below the default line there, the line item, and go ahead and type in the name of this, well, the time that we're going to have off. It's going to be for a luncheon. Then go ahead and hit Enter, and then you can see that when I click off of it, it's got the color over in the legend of a non-default work week. It does nothing more than just color it. You can see that the time is still from 8 to noon from 1 to 5. What you have to do is after you set that day as a non-default work week by typing it below the default line here, select it, come over here and click on Details, and then let's see, what day is that again? It's a Wednesday. Go ahead and choose Wednesday. You can use the times from the default work week for these days or set the days to these specific working times. So instead of 8 to noon, we're going to do 7. I'm going to go ahead and click here and type in 7 a.m. to, go over here to 11:00 a.m. tab key, and then click and drag these two cells, hit the delete key on the keyboard, click OK, and let's go ahead and click off of it. There we go. So we still have the non-default work week color, but when we select it over here, it shows us instead of the default from 8 to noon with lunch and then 1 to 5, it just says, hey, we're working from 7 to 11. That's it. Cool. Now, once you're done with applying your exception days, your non-default work weeks, be sure to click OK, because if you click Cancel, you're going to lose all this. So don't do that. Click OK. And again, if you need to make any changes to your base calendar by adding additional exception days or non-default working days, times, come up here on the Project tab to the Properties group, click on Change Working Time, and be sure to click on the drop-down arrow and select your base calendar, not your standard template here. Well, that is if you went with my suggestion to create a copy of the base calendar and give it a name that will apply to your project, which is going to be my Spiffy software training manual, hence the Spiffy calendar that's going to be applied to it. So select it, come down here, make changes, click OK when you're done. Okay, the past several training videos we learned how to create a base calendar, and then on that base calendar we learned how to create exception days, where we blocked out days for events like holidays and vacation, like Thanksgiving, Christmas, and also we set up a non-default work day. In other words, instead of 8 to 5, we said we want to work from 7 to 11 and have the rest of the day off. In any case, we want to be able to take that base calendar that we have all these exception days and non-default work days assigned to it and apply it to this project here. Because by default, it's got the standard template and it doesn't have our base calendar assigned to it. So to assign that base calendar to the project, so when we start scheduling our tasks, they don't work on those non-working days or those holidays, then come up here on the Project tab to the Properties group and click on Project Information. As you recall in an earlier training video, this is where we set our start date. Well, this is where you set your calendar. Instead of the default standard, we created our Spiffy base calendar for our Spiffy software training manual project. Select that, click OK, and that's it. Now, when you do that, any time that you schedule a task to be worked on those days that are non-working days or holidays, it'll take care of it. But if you're looking over here in the Gantt chart and you're like, wait a second, I'm looking at Saturday and Sunday. I get that. Those are the days that we're not working. But what about the holiday that we scheduled for September the 6th, the Labor Day? How come it's not showing a gray non-working time there? Well, by default, it doesn't show it in the Gantt chart. You have to turn it on. To turn it on, just go ahead and right-click anywhere in the Gantt chart, go down to non-working time, and you'll have to set the calendar from the standard to your project calendar. And then when you select that, notice down below in the preview, it adds Monday, September the 6th as Labor Day, and it shades that in as a non-working time. So click OK. Now, don't panic if you don't assign the project calendar to the Gantt chart. It just visually, if it's not assigned, you won't be able to see it, but it'll still prevent you from working on those days that you set aside as non-working days or exception days like Labor Day. It won't show you the gray lines, but it will actually move the task over so it doesn't work on that day, which might be confusing. You might go, how come the task, if I right-click and go back to non-working time and I forget to change it, I go back to the standard and click OK, how come that taskbar starts on Tuesday instead of Monday? You might be scratching your head until you remember, oh, that's right, it's Labor Day. So again, it's not going to screw things up. It just may screw you up if you're looking at the calendar and going, I don't understand. It's probably best to go ahead and right-click and assign the project calendar. Go to non-working time and set it to your project calendar there, the spiffy, and click OK. And so it visually makes sense to you over here in the Gantt chart, okay? And then we can go ahead and scroll over. And remember, we had Thanksgiving off. Let me scroll. There's Thanksgiving, and we also had the few days before Christmas, December 25th. Sweet. In previous versions of Project, the default mode of adding a task would be auto-scheduling. So when you added the task, Project would automatically add the duration, the start and the finish dates, all based upon dependencies, constraints, calendar, and other factors. If you don't want to have Project automatically adjust the task in relation to other tasks, as just mentioned, based upon dependencies, constraints, and so on, then new to Project 2010 is the manually scheduled task mode. The manually scheduled mode is the default task mode for all new tasks that you add to your project. How do you find out? Well, just come down below and you can see in the status bar that all new tasks will be manually scheduled, as opposed to when I click on it, in previous versions of Project, it was always automatically scheduled. You didn't have manually scheduled. And you can see here that when it's auto-scheduled, task dates are calculated by Project, and you don't have to do that manually, which I prefer. Let's go ahead and take a look at this when I come up here and I add a new task to see how that is manually scheduled. So if I type in, who doesn't need to clean their fridge out? Let me go ahead and hit enter. When I add it, you can see over here, new to Project 2010 is the task mode, to show you that with the push pin, it means it's been manually scheduled. You can see down below there's the push pin, so the icon represents manually scheduled, as opposed to if you do something automatically scheduled, you'll see that icon in the task mode column. So let me go ahead and click off, and it's got a question mark. When you hover over it, it says that more information is needed, and it shades those cells that it needs information to go ahead and complete this task when you add to it, so it can be scheduled, and it will remove the question mark when you go ahead and fill in those shaded fields. Like the duration, if I type in 1D for day, and I hit enter, the question mark's still there, even though it unshaded the start date, so I need to add the start date, which my project begins, as you recall, August 31st of 2010. So if I click on the drop-down arrow, well, I'm in 2013, I have to go back, or you can just go ahead and type it in, 8/31/10, and hit enter, and there you go. The question mark has been removed because we have the task, and we have the amount of time it takes to complete the task, and when it's going to be starting. And you can see down below when I arrow over, there are more columns within the entry table, and you can see that it finishes the same day, because when I start in the morning on the task or whoever, it's only one day, so I can finish the same day. Let me go ahead and scroll back. Okay. Let's go ahead and add another task, but before I do that, let's change it from down below in the status bar, from manually to automatically scheduled. You can see when I add something, it'll have that icon when it's in auto-scheduled mode over in the task mode column. Vacuum the living room. All these tasks, the reason why I bring them up here is because they're on my mind and I better do it. In any case, go ahead and hit enter, and there you go. You can see the differences between the two. It's either going to be manually, push pin, or automatically with the bar here and the little arrow that says, hey, not only have you typed in the task, but we've automatically added the duration and the start and finish dates, which coincidentally, notice that it just didn't pick a random start date, it picked the project start date. It will always do that when you add new tasks. So that way, when I come up here and I click in it, and I click on the drop down arrow saying, no, you're not starting the same day that project's starting, I got another task for that, then you don't have that far to go, right, when you want to choose another day. Let me go ahead and click off and click outside of it. And then it's got 1 day question mark. It's to signify or let you know that, hey, we've automatically scheduled it, but is this the amount of time you want to spend on the task or the amount of time it takes to complete the task? To go ahead and get rid of the question mark, just type in another duration, even if it's the same duration, like 1D for 1 day, and hit enter, and there you go. Now, if you wanted to, in the middle of your project, if you're like, I want to go ahead and do this automatic, you can click on it and change it, go to Auto Scheduled, change the icon. It won't change or adjust the duration or start dates. It just changes the mode here. So from here on out, it'll have the benefits of auto scheduled. It won't automatically adjust this here, at least not when we're entering it as a new task. And then you can come down here and change that to manually scheduled, and then go ahead and click off. And it highlights that because it says, okay, now go ahead and change it. And if you don't, and you still like the duration, the start and finish dates, then don't worry about it. It's just highlighting those areas that it thinks that you may want to go ahead and adjust when you have it in manual mode, switching it over. The con for using manually scheduled mode is that you lose the benefits of project adjusting the task dates when linked to other tasks, and you may not see warnings if there are problems with the entered values. Really, Microsoft states that the best use for the manually scheduled task mode is in the proposal phase, when nothing is set, and then go ahead and switch the task to automatically scheduling mode after proposals are accepted and just before the project starts, and is why Microsoft has this as the default task mode. I have an example of this in a later training video after we added additional data to our project to work with. As far as the rest of these training videos, what we'll be scheduling the task in and working within is going to be the automatically scheduled task mode. So having said that, if I want to go ahead and delete these tasks here, I can just come up here. Over in the row header column, you can see that I've got a black arrow pointing to the right. If I click and drag down, it'll select as many tasks. I dragged it down to just the second row, 2 rows. Hit the delete key on the keyboard, it gets rid of it. And then if you want to turn off notification, if you don't like the notification every time you open up project, it'll pop up down below. So for example, if I go ahead and click on File, and we go to New, and I open up Blank Project, double click on it, you see there's the notification. If you don't want to be notified, have it popped up every time saying, hey, you're in manually scheduled mode, the new task, then go ahead and give it a right click on the status bar and uncheck New Task Mode Notification. Try to say that really fast. Let me go ahead and uncheck it. So when I open up project again, let me click off File to New, double click. I don't get that pop-up. Okay, cool. Also, if you don't want to see this down below, that new task will be manually scheduled or automatically scheduled, whatever your default is, you can right click on that and uncheck New Task so you don't know which mode you're in. Well, if you have it set up that it's always going to be defaulted to automatically scheduled in this project or all new projects, then I guess it doesn't matter if you see it down below, which brings up a good point or a great segue. How do you go ahead and change the default from manually scheduled task mode for this project or all new projects? Well, come up here, click on the File tab, go down to Options, select the Schedule category, come down here to Scheduling Options for this project, and it's going to be for this project, Project 2, where it's going to be manually scheduled, or is it going to be for all new projects? We want it to be auto-scheduled. Go ahead and click Okie dokie, and so any new projects that I come up here and click on File, go down to New, double click Blank Project, and I add a task, we'll just type in Add Task. There you go, automatically scheduled, the mode that is here. There are 3 types of tasks that you can add to your project, and they are the basic task, as we learned in the previous training video, then the summary task, and the project summary task. Now the summary tasks summarize a group of tasks. So if you have a bunch of basic tasks like, let's say, cleaning the fridge, mopping the kitchen floor, washing the dishes, that could all be summarized or grouped under the summary task called cleaning the kitchen. So in this training video, I'm going to show you how you can add summary task and also basic task. First of all, let's go ahead and add some summary task. Those summary tasks, we'll start in the first cell here for the task name is to start book. Okay, pretty simplistic, hit enter. Now, as you recall in the previous training video, when I enter in a new task, it's automatically going to schedule it for me, the duration and the start date, and that's fine. I can come back and change it saying, okay, when it comes to starting the book and the start dates, I'll change those later. Right now, we're just going to learn how to add tasks. So below the start book, I'll have my research phase, hit enter. Now, the phase is a summary. It's not the research that's actually going to be done. As far as the research, I could go to the library, search the internet. Those would be subtasks to the summary task. So the summary task will group all those tasks that have to do with research, again, searching the web and so on, which we'll cover a little bit later on, but let me finish typing in my tasks here. Then I'll have the outline. You see I'm just typing and hitting enter as I go. Okay, let's see if this makes sense. So I'm going to start the book, and then I'm going to have all these phases or summary tasks. It says, okay, the research phase, again, as I discussed, will include searching the web and all these other basic tasks. And then the outline, development phase, test, review, print, and finally, the book will be complete. Now, if I made a mistake and I need to make any changes to one of these tasks, like let's say the test phase, I want to call it the edit phase, go ahead and select the cell that you want to go ahead and edit, and then double-click fairly slow, or click once to select it and click again so you can get the cursor inside of it, so you can come over here and select the text that you want to get rid of and make the change to it. Now, the reason why I say double-click really slow is because, let me click out and I go really fast, it actually opens up the task information or the properties of that task. That's okay, because the name of the task you can still change here on the General tab, the Predecessors tab, Resources tab. Any one of these tabs, it's got the names. So if I come in here and I change it from test to edit, and I go ahead and click okie dokie, it updates it there. Okay, so you don't want to double click too fast. Just go ahead and click once to select it, click again. Okay, click again. There we go. The other thing that you can do is you can bring up the entry bar, and by default that's turned off. You want to come up here, click on the File tab, and this is how you turn it on. Go to the Options, and then come up here and click Display, and there we go. Show these elements, entry bar, check it, click OK, and it adds the entry bar right here. There's a lot of similarities when it comes to working in Project in the spreadsheet down below that you'll find, and a lot of shortcuts when you watch my Excel 2010 training videos. In any case, so if I come up here and I select Edit Phase, and I don't want to slowly click and click again very softly to get in there, well, just go ahead and let me click off, select it, come up here in the entry bar, and make your changes there. Edits, hit Enter, and there you go, Edits Phase. It's a lot easier without having to double click, at least for me, and then hit Enter. Not only that, but when you have the entry bar here, notice that your cell length for the task name is yay big. You can go ahead and stretch it if you'd like, but if you don't and you want it yay big, then if it's more than what you see here and it goes over behind the duration, you can't see the text there, go ahead and select the cell and just look up here, and you've got all this space up here that you can see what's in that cell that you couldn't see down below in the task name cell itself. Now, the table here, where you can see the indicator column, the task mode column, we've got some columns here. If you want to see more, then come down here and you can scroll to the right and it will open up more. Or you can hover over the split bar until your pointer turns into arrows pointing in opposite directions. Then you can go ahead and click and drag and stretch that out. So you can take a look at all the columns that, well, without having to scroll too far, well, I still have to scroll, but I can see most all the columns here by dragging that split bar over to the right. I see less of the Gantt chart, but more of the entry table. So we also have the start column, the finish, predecessors, resource names. In any case, to go ahead and move that back, just hover over the split bar, drag it back. And by the way, when you get close to, let me drag it over here, back to where it was originally, to a column that you want to see, and you're trying to get it right on that line there so you don't have to see the one next to it, what you can do as a shortcut is get it more than halfway there or halfway to it on the other column and double click really fast on that split bar. So you can see when I have the arrows pointing in opposite directions, double click really fast, it automatically snaps to the closest column there. Now that we have basically our summary tasks that we're going to be starting the book, we're going to have all these different phases, I'm going to show you how you can go ahead after you enter in your summary task, how you can squeeze in the basic tasks, or those tasks that when they're grouped together under that summary task, that when those tasks are entered, how we can go ahead and group them or put them all together underneath that summary task. You don't have to do it my way. You don't even have to have summary tasks. You can just type in those research tasks, like interview subject matter experts, investigate the software, search the web. You don't have to have a summary task called phase. But if you do, let me show you how it's done and what you can do. So to enter in a subtask to the summary task research phase, I'm going to select the task below it and then come up here on the task tab to the insert group, click on the task drop down arrow and select task. Opens up, says, hey, this is a new task. Cool. Then just go ahead and type in the name of that new task, which is going to be, and then when I'm done, interview subject matter experts, hit enter. There we go. Looks like the text wrapped around the cell, so the cell got a little bit larger. Now, if I want to have the cell, instead of wrapping, I want it to be the text within the cell stretched out, in which case if I stretch this cell out, it's going to stretch the entire column. But if I want to do it, you can just go ahead and hover up at the top, the label for that column, the task name to the right of it, in between those two column headers, until you can see arrows pointing in opposite directions. You can go ahead and click and drag that to stretch it open, okay? Or if you double click really fast, it does a best fit, in which case it automatically takes the longest text within that column and fits the column to that text, which is interview subject matter experts. I can go ahead and click and drag it back. The other way of doing it, instead of double clicking really fast in between the two column headers, is you can right click on that column, go down to field settings, and do a best fit. And that works as well. And then if I hover down below row 3, because we've got the space, from this task to the next one, you can see my arrows are pointing in opposite directions. You can just double click really fast and it does auto fit. Of course, you can't right click on here and get the field settings here as you could for the column here to do the best fit. Okay, let's go ahead and enter in a few more tasks that are basic tasks to the summary task research phase. To enter in 2 more tasks below the interview subject matter expert, I'm going to go ahead and select the task below it. And you could come back up here to the task tab to the insert group and click on the task drop down arrow or click on the task button, or if you'd like, you can just go ahead and hit the insert key on the keyboard twice, because I want to insert 2 more tasks and then just go ahead and type in the other task. Now notice that when I start typing, let me go ahead and hit the escape key because I haven't finished typing. It pulls me out of the cell and clears it. When I start typing, the first couple of letters, or even the first one, it looks up above and it says, okay, does anything else begin with the letter I? If it does, then it automatically fills in that cell. So it's like a shortcut if you want to go ahead and have interview subject matter experts in that cell as well, but you don't want it name the same name. You may want to go ahead and add something else like interview subject matter experts B or Susie or John. Then it saves a lot of time if you don't have to type it in, but just go to the end and type in a few extra things, or just leave it as is and just hit enter. It'll automatically add it, okay? We want to investigate the software, hit enter, and then finally search the web and hit enter. And then after I go ahead and I type this in, I'm like, wait a second, this is out of order. Instead of interviewing the subject matter experts first, I'd like to go ahead and move that down. So what you can do is come over here, click on the row header. Notice that when I hover over row 3, it's got a black arrow pointing to the right. When you click on it, it selects the entire row. Then you can go ahead and come up here to the task tab to the clipboard group and click on cut, or you can give it a right click and then go ahead and left click on cut, disappears. Then go ahead and select the row that you want to go ahead and paste that above. So when I go ahead and right click on that row that I just selected and I go ahead and say paste, it pushes what I have selected down. So now I have a reordering. Instead of interview subject matter experts first, under the research phase, it's now last. So that's how you can move them around. Or if you don't want to do it that way, you can actually just hover over here. Once you've got the row selected here, and you see how I got a 4-way arrow, you go ahead and click and drag that, and you see that black line? It's kind of faded there. Wherever you move that to, that's where it's going to dump it. So under the research phase, or click and drag it back under search the web. As you recall in the previous training video, there are 3 types of tasks you can add to your project. There's the basic task, then the summary task, which summarizes a group of tasks, like for example, as you recall in the previous training video, I've got the research phase, which is a summary task that summarizes these 3 tasks or basic tasks here. So when we research, we'll be investigating the software, searching the web, interviewing subject matter experts. In this training video, I'm going to show you how you can add the project summary task, which is a task name that summarizes the project's goal. So to go ahead and add the project summary task, come up here, click on the File tab, go down to Options, come over here, click on the Advanced category, and then scroll down to find under the Display Options for this project heading or in this section, and check Show Project Summary Task. Then go ahead and click Okie dokie, and it does a couple of things. Okay, first off, you get Task 0. That's the summary or the goal for this project listed here as the project summary task. And then it's got the duration. Now this duration we're going to leave alone because it's the summary of all these tasks down below. And you can see over here in the Gantt chart, you've got a gray bar here. That will expand as the tasks grow. You know, if we have tasks that take longer than 1 day, whether it's out 3 days or 4 days, it'll actually measure it to the longest task, or when all the tasks are linked together, to the entire project here that are made up of all these tasks. So where does it pull? Let me go ahead and it's ghosting here. When I click somewhere, a little pop-up stays there and it doesn't remove itself until I click off somewhere. In any case, so where does it pull this project summary from? Well, it's from the advanced properties. As you recall in an earlier training video, we came up here and we clicked on the File tab, went down to Info. Well, that's the default. You just need to come over here and click on the Project Information drop-down arrow to Advanced Properties. On the Summary tab, that's where it's pulling it from. So any changes that I make here, and I go from spiffy to spiff, and I add some comments, add something with a happy face, and I click Okie dokie, and I come back up here and click on the File tab to take me back to the front stage view. You can see it updates the title or the goal for the project summary task, from spiffy to spiff, and then plus in the indicator column here, I added some notes, didn't I? So I said add something, then I had a happy face. If I want to change that, just double click on it, go to the Notes tab, and then, well, I don't want to get rid of the happy face. We'll go ahead and leave it there and just say awesome project. Click Okie dokie, hover over it, gives you the pop-up, add something, happy face, awesome project, great. You can also make changes here, and what you make changes here will also update the advanced properties, the title field. So I can come up here in the entry bar and let me arrow over and type in Y, hit enter. So now it's back to Spiffy Software Training Manual. So if I come back up here, File, to Info, Project Information, Advanced Properties, we're back to something spiffy. Sweet. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel to get notified of the latest videos. And for great specials on my products, please see the description below this video.